Thank you, Eva. There was commotion in my house, and I certainly blocked them and myself out. Nothing too interesting. I was just talking about the agenda and that we have a number of business items, but 2 important information items toward the end. And if there's no objection, I will assume the agenda is approved, which brings us to approval of the minutes from February 24th, the Met Council meeting then. So if there is any interest, I would welcome a motion to approve the minutes.
Moved by Lee.
Second by Vento.
Thank you, both Councilmember Lee and Vento. Any discussion? And if not, Bridget, you may call the roll.
Councilmember Atlas Ingebrigtsen. Atlas Ingebrigtsen. Barber.
Aye.
Chandler.
Aye.
Cummings.
Aye.
Ferguson.
Aye.
Fredson.
Aye.
Gonzalez.
Aye.
Johnson. Lee.
Aye.
Lilligren.
Aye.
Lindstrom.
Aye.
Musse.
Aye.
Sterner. Sterner. Vento.
Aye.
Wolf. Wolf. Zirin. Cherzelli.
Aye. That motion carried. On to the consent agenda. May I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda?
Travis makes a motion to approve.
Thank you, Councilmember Travis. Thank you, Robert. Any discussion? Okay, Bridget.
Councilmember Atlas Ingebrigtsen.
Aye.
Barber.
Aye.
Chandler.
Aye.
Cummings.
Aye.
Ferguson.
Aye.
Fredson.
Aye.
Gonzalez.
Aye.
Johnson.
Hi, I had a work call. I am jumping in right now. What item are we voting on?
Consent
This
agenda.
is the consent agenda. Right.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Lilligren.
Aye.
Lindstrom.
Aye.
Musse.
Aye.
Sterner. Sterner. Vento.
Aye.
Aye.
Wolf. Oh, there's Sterner.
Aye.
Wolf. Zirin. Zirin. Cherzelli.
Aye. That consent agenda is approved. Now on to reports of standing committees. The community development has a report on the consent agenda. There are no reports of the environment committee. There are no reports from the management committee. And we have a transportation committee, a couple of reports on the consent agenda. So really here to the meat of our meeting, a number of information items. And our first presentation is on the Equity Advisory Committee 2020 work and draft 2021 work plan presented by Nalima Satati Menuan. I know I mispronounced your last name, Nalima, I apologize. Anita Irvana Davis and Sarah Rudolph. Welcome. It's so nice to have you in our council meeting, and I look forward to your presentation. Nalima, are you starting?
Yes, thank you so much, Zeli, and thank you so much, council members, for the opportunity to come before you again and talk about our committee's work for the past 2020 and to share what we have upcoming in 2021. Just a clarification from staff. Did y'all get a PowerPoint? Did you get our PowerPoint? Are you gonna put it up?
Yep, I'll have it up in a minute.
Okay. So while staff is getting the PowerPoint up and running, I'm going to introduce my fellow committee members who have already been introduced. So Anita Varna Davis and Sarah Rodolph are members of the Equity Advisory Committee, and we are both, we're all three of us going to be co-presenting on our work and talking about our 2021 work. Okay. Thank you. And so we can just move on to the next slide, please. So an overview of what our presentation is going to be about. We want to give an overview of the advisory committee. We're going to talk about our 2020 highlights, and then we will talk about our 2021 work plan. And then we will talk about, Anita will present about our 2021 workflow. Next slide, please. So the Equity Advisory Committee was formed to advise the council on all matters in regards to equity. And what we advise the council on is we follow the regional development guide for the metro area, Thrive MSP 2040, and also give advice around the 3 regional systems plans that the Metropolitan Council has purview on, that is in the areas of transportation, water resources management, regional parks and policies and trails, and also the council's policy plans as pertains to housing and the water supply. And the committee, I believe about 2 years ago, the council approved an equity policy. And so those are the areas in which the committee advises the councils on. Next slide, please. So an overview, the Equity Advisory Committee is a unique committee of the Metropolitan Council. It was established in 2015, and this is a committee that the community actually advocated for the council to have. And it was, an invitation from the community to the council to say, how can we partner together? I mean, I think before that we had a series of reports about our region, and there had been a lot of conversation around the inequities that exist within our region. And so it was an invitation from the community to the council to say, how can we partner together so that we can be able to address, the inequity issues that exist in our region. Especially, there had already been a lot of identification about, inequities, especially racial equity, being a real threat to the development of our region and the prosperity of our region, if you may. And so the purpose of the committee is to advance equity outcomes in the metropolitan region. And so to advise on the development of policy, to recommend best practices for assessment and monitoring performance, and to contribute as a community voice in the public engagement plan. The committee operates under bylaws. We have bylaws, and we meet regularly on the 3rd Tuesday of the month at 6 p.m. So informing the Equity Advisory Committee, that is one of the responses of the council, in demonstrating the commitment to equity in our region and to partnering with community. Next slide, please. The committee membership, the committee draws a membership from the same districts that the council has purview on. We have 8 geographic members, one representing each district. If you notice, the districts, the representative districts are a little bit different than the regular council districts. And then we have 9 at-large members. The members of the committee must be a resident of the 7-county metropolitan area. We have 2 co-chairs. One is a council member, and the other co-chair is a member of the community, and they can either be representing a geographic area or be an at-large member. Next slide, please. The committee has 21 members. We are currently we're currently at 20 members. We have one vacancy that is from the management committee, so we don't have a representative council member. I mean, we have some council members who are currently in the committee who serve in the management committee, but we don't have, and they serve also on other committees, but we don't have a management committee specific, council member. So we have one vacant seat in the Equity Advisory Committee that needs to be filled by a council member from that committee. But otherwise, we recently, the council recently approved new members into the Equity Advisory Committee. And so in terms of, we're almost at full capacity. We only have one vacancy in the committee right now. And so I will hand it over to Sarah to carry us on for the rest of the presentation.
Thank you, Nalima, and good afternoon, Chair Zelli and council members. Next slide, please. So just a brief overview about our committee values and strategies. I won't read the slide, but really to convey this sense of we're here to really represent community and offer community voice and our perspective that's really rooted in communities and the districts that we represent. But at the same time, we really see ourselves kind of as a membrane. So I know the Met Council touches down in community in a number of different ways, but we kind of see ourselves as a membrane that connects the Met Council's work with community and kind of recognizing our unique position there to really help to inform and influence and help to communicate through both sides. Next slide, please. So just to say that the state of the EAC is really stronger than ever. As Nalima pointed out, all of our seats on the community side have been filled, and we recently went through a process to fill the vacancies from people terming out earlier in the year. But there were a large number of applicants in a very competitive process. And so just to let you know that there is a very high level of interest in this work on behalf of the community. Last year, we underwent some strategic planning, and I'll talk about that more on the next slide, but just to say that we're very situated for impact at this point. Having been relatively newly formed, we're really feeling like we're very on track right now to be able to be an effective and helpful resource for the Met Council. So some changes that occurred last year, we formed 4 subcommittees, which we had not had before. We had increased engagement with the group, but also increased support from the Office of Equal Opportunity in terms of the staffing and connection points between the EAC and Met Council staff. And then I want to recognize broadly, just given the events of the past year, not only the pandemic, but the murder of George Floyd, this recognition that equity is really forefront in people's minds right now and with the Met Council. And so the Equity Advisory Committee is very poised to be a resource and to really help to move the work forward. Next slide, please. So some highlights on specific advice that we were able to share last year. We worked with Metro Transit on their Network Next community engagement plan. The EAC members are also participating in the Citizens League review of transit system safety. And one additional item that is omitted from this slide, we were actively participating and had representatives assisting with the Regional Park System Equity Grants Program, both last year, and we're also gearing up to do that this year as well. Next slide, please. I mentioned the strategic planning that we did last year. So we worked with a consultant to really think about where the EAC and how the EAC could plug into the Met Council's work in the most effective way, given the format of the committee in terms of its community members and being able to really interface with staff and the council members in a way that would be time efficient, but also informative on both sides. So this strategic planning really clarified the process for how the committee would submit recommendations to the council, created a workflow on how information goes back to the committee and how our feedback gets incorporated and can be considered, and then along with the recommendations and advice, and then really formed those 4 subcommittees that I mentioned earlier. Next slide, please. So from there, we've developed a 2021 work plan draft that my colleague Anita will be sharing with you momentarily. But it's broken down by these 4 work groups. So they're in the green circles there: affordable housing, public transit and transportation, 1 metro partnerships, and then the 4th is council operations. So the work plan of the EAC is really more like the work plans of 4 different committees at this point. We're working within those subcommittees to connect with staff. And like I said, Anita will be going over those work plans in greater detail shortly. Next slide, please. So this workflow is my last slide, and I just want to share with you, I know it's quite difficult to see, but just to recognize that this is a process that emerged out of the strategic planning process. In previous to this workflow being established, what would happen is that staff would opt to bring forward a proposal, a project, a plan to the EAC, and would offer a presentation to share about the project overall, and then ask the EAC for feedback. And in many ways, this was helpful, but in many ways, it was quite difficult because information did not always come to the EAC at the right time for us to have the opportunity to influence the way that work was done, or to ask the right types of questions that would perhaps inform the way that a project was approached. And so in this workflow, it's really designed to have greater connection with each of the departments. So the departments can really bring information straight to our subcommittees that are organized according to topic areas. Those subcommittees can bring things forward back to the whole committee, from which there's council members. So the council members, and that's where the divide there is from the, in the diagram. So the council members can really bring policy issues and recommendations from the EAC back to the full council when needed to adopt policies and kind of implement those practices. But another way is really through the staff. So the subcommittee can bring information back to the departments, and then that can be implemented that way as well. So really, it's kind of a closing the circle of not only involving the EAC in discussions, but also providing a mechanism for the results of those discussions to be incorporated into the work of the council. And with that, I will turn it over to Anita. And Greg, I believe that's the conclusion of this presentation. Thank you.
Okay. Could we get a copy of the strategic plan? While we're waiting, good evening. Thank you, council members, for having us here tonight to present. My name is Anita Ravina Davis. And if we could get a draft of that EAC priorities, that would be helpful.
I don't have that. Is there anybody in the meeting that has it? You're able to present it.
Hello, this is Cy Jordan, Director of Equal Opportunity. And so we did provide it as a handout with the materials, and for public posting, I can share it on the screen if I have access to do so. Let me try here.
Thank you, Cy. I appreciate that. As my colleague Sarah mentioned, we got together on a one-day retreat, and our focus was to work on a strategy to talk about the work that we as the Equity Advisory Committee could do, and what our roles are and how it relates to the work of the Metropolitan Council. As Sarah also noticed, we focused on 4 areas that we would prioritize on our strategic plan so that we could come up with some goals and some strategies of how to work together as a group. Those 4 areas, again, are affordable housing, public transportation, One Metro partnerships, and council operations. And as you can see, the plans are quite elaborate. We worked very, very hard on these for several months. And we did this virtually since we were in the period of COVID and we could not meet together. So I commend the EAC with sticking to this. As we look through each of the priority areas, I will give you a little bit of brief detail on each one. Affordable housing, for example. In this group, the group was looking towards outreach and engagement of community members to get feedback on housing solutions and solutions to some of the problems that individuals and community members are experiencing, such as where the greatest where the greatest areas of problems exist, and how the EAC can assist the Met Councils on working as a group to work and do more engagement with the community, talk about these problems, bring them to the forefront, and look at it and using our role as advisory on ways to solve some of these issues and get the community members actively involved, as they are the ones that are experiencing homelessness or living in these housing areas. The second area that we had, you can move this up please, is transportation. This group of EAC members had numerous goals with the understanding of how the transportation policies are made and an understanding those more and building a useful relationship that is beneficial to the Met Council and to both the EAC and the community members themselves. One of the things that this group struggled with is actually the transportation is going through some changes. There are some new light rails being built in community areas, and how we can do some more outreach and engagement to the community members to get some feedback of how to make the light rail, particularly the new line going through North Minneapolis and into Maple Grove area, how to make that more beneficial to the people and the residents in that area of the city who will be using the light rail, and also the other light rail and how they connect. And so particular interest was the stations of where they're going to be placed in those communities. In the One Metro partnership, this group recognizes the various community work of our individual EAC members and how those community connections can help by building relationships to the Met Council and utilizing the experience and the connections that EAC members currently have, and creating meaningful and beneficial partnerships between the Met Council and the community members themselves. We recognize that we are all individually involved in various community groups and organizations and active and come from various backgrounds, which we can utilize our own experiences to help the Met Council in building those relationships and maintaining those partnerships that are possible between the Met Council and communities. Lastly, in council operations, This particular group wishes to learn more about the current Met Council policies, practices, and procedures for hiring, promotion, and retention of its staff. In addition to the contracting services that the Met Council puts out, the goal of this group is to bring traditionally disenfranchised communities into the planning processes, and especially in the purchasing and grants and contracting of the metropolitan businesses, the DBEs, and the MCUB programs, and utilizing those per the affirmative action plans and utilizing the language. So like I said, it's quite lengthy. I just glossed over a little bit of it because it is so lengthy, but if you have any questions about our presentation, I think Sarah and I and Nalima are happy to take some of those questions right now and answer them for you.
Let's open it up. Thank you so much for that kind of a quick overview. We know that there's great length and substance behind it, and I see the co-chair, Francisco. Did you raise your hand?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just want to thank Nalima, Sarah, and Anita for their presentation, and just to stress that this work was driven by the community members that are members of the EAC, and it really represents the input from a broad section of the community. So I appreciate all their hard work. The other thing that I want to mention is that Nalima has indicated that she's stepping back from her role as chair of the EAC. So she's been the co-chair since the beginning of the committee. So I just want to acknowledge her hard work in being the driving force behind the EAC through a number of years. And thank you for her tireless work on behalf of equity across the region. And we will be seating a new co-chair, I think in the next couple of weeks or so, from among the current membership of the EAC. So we'll stay tuned. Thank you.
Nima, you are being very humble, but sadly, this is a virtual meeting. If this was real, we would hand you, some plaque or something, But really, thank you so much. I know, having met with you a number of times, the amount of work and hours you put in. So I hope you don't stray too far.
But Mr. Chair, if I may, yes, I don't want this moment to pass. I just want to acknowledge that actually there was a previous co-chair, the brave person to step up at the very beginning. It was a new committee and we didn't know it was going. So Akua Ellis is actually my predecessor. She was the first co-chair of the Equity Advisory Committee. So I just want to acknowledge that and acknowledge her leadership. Thank you.
Linnea, you have a question, comment.
Now I have a comment and a question. But Nalima, thanks for your leadership and your commitment to not just this committee, but your commitment in the communities you serve. Folks that do the work that you do are often not recognized enough. And even though we are virtual, I think we should still be able to send you a plaque or a certificate or something. I don't think we need to we got mail. We got mail. We can.
I've heard of mail. We should try that.
I think we can do that to recognize your service. But I want to just remind folks that the folks on the EAC and Nalima, not excluded, of course, volunteer their time, and a significant amount of their time, because they care and they want to make a difference, a measurable change in their community. And it is not without pain and sacrifice and joy and accomplishment. And so I just want to fully acknowledge that and thank you deeply in a job that often is not, doesn't come with a bunch of perks. I think you get reimbursed for parking, maybe, but but I don't even know if that's the case. I hope that's the case. But I want to thank you for that. And one of my questions, and also I guess a comment, is, you know, the MPOSC has benefited deeply. And our regional parks have benefited deeply from the work of the EAC, and I think in many ways have been incredibly responsive to the guidance, the challenges, the opportunities for growth. And I 100% support the plan that you put forward and understand the need to create boundaries and to make sure that the work of the EAC is systematized and accomplishable in a way that honors the members of the EAC and their commitment and gets us to measurable differences and change. I just wonder if you could talk a little bit, if you've thought about the work you've done with the Metropolitan Regional Parks and Open Spaces, and if that came up in conversation, and if there's been any conversation around that, and how we can maybe continue to work together, and we need to figure out other things, because both just like Nalima's moving on and I support her and move on into other things in her life, I support the EAC and moving on to other things. And I think that our MPOSC commissioners are about the work and ready for the work, and we're going to make sure they're ready to do even more. But I just wondered if that came up in conversation.
I think I can take that one if I may. So Chair Zeli, Council Member Ingebrigtsen, and the whole council. So in terms of the park system, I mean, as you have mentioned, yes, we have done a lot of work with the park system. They've been very pleased with how responsive, you know, they have been. I think one of the significant work that we did with them was, you know, in creating, you know, the equity grant, which I remember, you know, the first time it was created, you know, the funds were restricted, and so they could only be allocated to infrastructural development. There was also a lot of conversation about how that was just such little money and how it should be more. And so the following year, there was a significant change in terms of the amount, and also they drew funds from, you know, a pot of money where those funds, you know, could be flexible. And so it didn't just have to go to infrastructure and to go to, you know, programming. And I think you do raise a good question. So, I mean, in terms of, you know, I mean, and so that I said that was a change, and I think that is the big question is, okay, like, how do we systemize that? So I don't know if that is something, you know, that has been systemized, that when it comes to the equity grants, then we have to make sure that we're drawing the funds, you know, from this pot of money that is more flexible, so that it can be more accessible, you know, that it can be, you know, more accessible, you know, to, so for example, to community groups, and also so that it can go towards programming. So it's really directly, you know, benefiting participants and people, and not just the infrastructure. And I don't know, maybe that is something that we can follow up, you know, with the MPOSC on, to see where that lies.
Chair, if I could, I want to reinforce that it's perfectly fine when we get systems in the effort to advance equity in public institutions. Hopefully we get to points where we get teams or departments or work further enough ahead where they don't need intensive engagement on a regular basis. And so I'm going to take this as a win. I'm going to take it as a win because we also just are getting really close, I hope I'm not stealing thunder, to appointing a majority, at least a majority, if not 50%, first ever Metropolitan Parks and Open Space Commission that's BIPOC. At least 50 and maybe a little bit more than 50%. And so we're, you know, so I just want to say that you don't have to do everything. ideally we're making progress and getting teams to great places. And maybe it's something like a once a year check-in or a quarterly check-in, or there's something specific that we work on and connect around. But that's a success and a win, not just for MPOS, not just for the parks team, but also for the work of the EAC and the staff that came forward that have worked over years to set that up. And the EAC that's worked over years to support that work. So thank you.
Well, thank you for highlighting that, and it is a model for maybe how we should be thinking about our processes. Peter, you got a question?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. More of a comment than a question. First of all, I echo my colleagues in thanks for your service. It's not easy, and we're incredibly grateful. I chaired the Environment Committee, and we have something like 600 plus employees, 700 employees. We spend a lot of money on environmental services, and so I just want to, I guess, have extend an open invitation to you to come to the Environment Committee and share what you're learning in terms of the Council Operations Subcommittee, number one. And then number two, I really support the tasks that you are going to be diving into in the year ahead, affordable housing and transit. But if there is ever room for a fifth subcommittee, it'd be interesting to look at our environment, to look at water, particularly that our council is heavily involved in water quality, and we're heavily involved in things like water supply planning. So looking at those issues, surface water, lakes, rivers, as well as water planning for potable water with an equity lens, I think would be fascinating for your committee to look at at some point in the future. And I'd be willing to help with that.
If I could respond, Mr. Chair?
Please.
As a matter of fact, as Sarah and I were preparing this presentation, Sarah and I both come from environmental backgrounds. Mine is environmental justice, working with the PCA and North Minneapolis green zones. And Sarah used to work at the PCA as well. And so we were just discussing this very issue of moving forward as to extending into the environmental area, especially the environmental justice, not just the water, but the effects of toxicities that might come out of the wastewater plant area. And so those are some discussions that both Sarah and I can't speak for her, but for myself, I'd be happy to have anytime.
Thank you. That's music to my ears, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Councilmember Chambliss.
I just want to thank everybody for the opportunity to overview what's been going on historically and currently with the Equity Advisory Committee. A lot of things have happened in the last couple of years, and I can see, and it's very evident, that you have looked at how you can better support our organization by building in capacity and collaborating with other departments like our OEO department. And I see that many of your priorities and goals are mirroring the priorities and goals of the Metropolitan Council and many of the committees that we already have, which means that we are greatly aligned. Your information on your priorities regarding council operations and the use of metrics and data is one of our priorities as well, and we have been working with staff. So your workflow allows us to better close the loop as well as this strategic plan so that we can make sure that there's a representative from EAC as we are having those discussions. And with that, I have a question about for these priorities, have you thought about breaking down each of these priorities and who might be the point person if we do have meetings with staff or with our committee members? Has that been thought of? And if not, I would maybe suggest that you provide a point person so we don't have to just always go to the co-chairs and share the load, because this is a lot of work. And it shows the dedication that your group has, and also the competence that your group has to address these equity issues. And if we work together, we can get on the same page and then lift up equity.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Chambliss. Yes, so each of the subcommittees, the goal is to have chairs or leads in each of those subcommittees. And I know not all the subcommittees have identified leads yet, but some of them already have, and actually some of the subcommittees have already started their 2021 work and have started already meeting with staff with the support from the OEO. So normally what we'll do is we'll meet, send the request to the OEO staff, and vice versa if somebody wants to meet with one of the subcommittees. And so once we identify the leads for all the, subcommittees, yes, then, the OEO staff will, communicate the leads of all the subcommittees to the council.
Great,
Judy.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just loved this presentation. It's just exactly what I've been waiting and hoping for, because I know the EQC is just so important in all the great work you've done. And I really appreciate this work plan. I think it's just right on. To Councilmember Chambliss's point, I mean, truly the Equity Advisory Committee is there to serve and advise the council. So the fact that we're aligned is really important, because we really are one organization working in different modes to reach our outcomes together. So I have a couple of questions. Who on the Met Council team of staff, who's the staff lead to the EAC? Who's the main person that helps to support and lead the EAC?
I will defer that question to Sai. I know there's been some reorg, so Sai is the director, and then she can, if she has any other further information to add about how the reorg of her staff, I'll let her respond to that.
Chair, Councilmember Johnson, this is Cy Jordan, Director of Equal Opportunity. And so I currently support the EAC along with the staff of the Office of Equal Opportunity, which would be our Administrative Assistant, Arena Anderson, as well as our Assistant Director, Ashanti Payne. And then as we hire a new equity manager, they will also continue to join the team in supporting the Equity Advisory Committee. We do currently have two of the groups up and running regarding the priorities. So as indicated, each of the priorities have a subcommittee. And so the transportation subcommittee has already been actively engaged with MTS as well as Metro Transit, getting information on how they make policy, and have also made direct connections with TAB, and will continue that work as they then set their own work plan for their subcommittee to continue through 2021. The Council Operations Committee is, and so on the subcommittee for the transportation is Sarah Rudolph, who's here with you today, as well as T is another member of that subcommittee. And then we have Council Operations, which will be led by Leah and I believe Edward from the EAC. And then I wanted to step back to a question that you had, Councilmember Atlas Ingebrigtsen. We do have an invitation for staff to continue with the equity grants through community development. So we do have 2 EAC members who have volunteered to continue on with that support service.
And Mr. Chair, thank you, Sai, that's great. If I may, just a couple other things. It's, and we all know this, but it's really important that there's equal accountability, and that they're fully supported in the way they need to be. And with the subcommittees, that there's a direct lead from each of those groups that will be accountable to and accountable with the subcommittee. From my 20+ years on the city council, we had committees that were successful and we had committees that were not successful. And a lot of it was about that framework, the work plan, and who would be accountable to the work and where our goals aligned. And so I see this as a huge step forward. So I really want to again praise you for the document that you presented today. My second question is, just coming out of the management committee meeting today, and certainly all of us in all of the areas that we're serving right now, we're working through our budgets, and equity is one of our top goals, and there's money to be put behind that. So is there a budget that goes to the EAC where they can streamline, some of the work that we've got on our pending or proposed lists? Management had a long list of ideas today where there's money that's been budgeted for and allocated in 2021 for equity work. So, again, making sure that we're, clearly it's very clear that the EAC is infusing, no silos, right? Infusing into the work. And I'm just wondering if budgetary infuse into some of the work that they're doing for greater impact, because again, they're volunteers. This isn't their full-time job, but it sounds to me like, if there's a way to financially support it and it goes back into some of the programs that we're trying to accomplish, I'd like to just see that given consideration. Then you don't have to answer now, but if, I just think that it's important. This just seems to be kind of a no-brainer to me. And I know I've done that in my past roles where they've had some financial support as well. And then I think just lastly, I want to say too, I really appreciate this as an information item, but in the past as well, because it's an advisory committee, as the council, we would actually accept and work with and approve officially the plan, and that made us be accountable. So that means equal partnership. The document's been drafted, it's been reviewed. We have a right then to react and respond so that we get it to where both groups need to work together. And I think that we're there now, but I just like to approve and adopt those things, which means I'm committed to it and I'm voting on it today. It's not just information only. So even though it is information only, I'm signing on to this 100%. And I think you guys are really gonna make a huge difference. We're all gonna do it together, but we couldn't do the things that we're trying to do without you. And I want to make sure you're fully supported. So thank you very much.
Judy, is that a motion to accept the report? Is that something you'd like?
Well, Mr. Chair, if I may, yes, I'd move to accept their report, and with a lot of gratitude for their hard work. And thank you to Nalima and everybody, and for the wonderful presentation today, and for the reaction on the council's part. I think from 2 years ago, we're making huge strides.
I second that.
Thank you, Councilmember Chambliss. Any more discussion? I would just say what a progress in 2 years, in the year that I've been here, and so thank you. I agree. Any other? We have a motion and a second. Councilmember Lee.
Well, thanks, Mr. Chair. I just want to reiterate that I'm grateful for Nalima's work to be with us from day one. 6 years is a long time, but especially for a young committee. And what is inevitable with a young committee is that there were times where there are growing pains, and but you stuck through and you persevered. So thanks, Nalima, for your work, and to all the other committee members and their leadership. The EAC has a lot of great people with a lot of passion and expertise, and it's good to direct their energy and help focus and help inform our work. So thank you.
Any other comments on this motion? Chris.
Thank you, Chair, and Nalima, Sarah, and Anita for your presentation. And just real quick, I served on EAC for my first year, and I just wanted to thank you for your work, but also encourage you, like I did when I served on the committee, that if you have strong views as committee members, feel free to reach out to us in between meetings too. I know that how business moves sometimes quickly at the council, and with the committee meeting monthly, sometimes I just wouldn't want stuff to get bogged down at committee. So if you as individuals want to communicate your positions to us directly, you should feel free to do so. So thank you.
Any other comments? I do think this is incumbent upon us as council members to think about this earlier in the process. From what I'm hearing today, it's not to have presentations after things are baked, but to kind of include this feedback along the way. And so we need to work on that, our part, and to make this relevant for and make this extra effort that you've been making really have an impact. Councilmember Alice Ingebrigtsen.
Thanks, Chair. The only addition that I would have, and I thank Councilmember Johnson for bringing this up, is that I love the idea of a budget for this committee. And I don't know how that works out for all of our other committees, but I think of things like the amount of hours that these volunteers invest. And I kind of jokingly said, I hope they're getting, when we are driving, validation for parking. But I also think about the need for onboarding and possible training or exploration and opportunities. I want to, if we have that for other committees and we invest that, I want to make sure that we are doing that here. So I like the idea of exploring a dedicated budget for this work. I just wanted to throw that out there for something for us to consider in the future.
Thank you for that thought. And just to follow up, I think we should refer that to not just staff, but to the management committee and to kind of see where we're spreading other committees and what needs are there to make it effective. Thank you. Francisco.
Thank you, Chair. And just briefly on that last issue of the budget, that's a conversation that I had before with Nalima and with the previous chair, Chair Slawick, about specific items that we thought would be good to have at the EAC so we could support our work. And one of those included some money for a couple of very specific and targeted items. So yes, that conversation has happened. I definitely am aware that we might have a little bit of a financial issue at the Met Council, but still there is a lot of opportunity for enhancing the work of the EAC with a very modest amount of input, of financial input. So I welcome the willingness to continue that conversation. I'll be more than happy to assist in that and continue to submit ideas on behalf of the EAC on how we can support them with some additional financial resources. Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to accept the report from Councilmember Johnson and the report from the Equity Advisory Committee, priority areas. If there's no other discussion, I think we should call for a vote. Bridget?
Councilmember Atlas Ingebrigtsen.
Resounding aye.
Barber.
Aye.
Sandwich.
Aye.
Cummings.
Aye.
Ferguson.
Aye.
Fredson.
Aye.
Gonzalez.
See.
Johnson.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Lilligren.
Aye.
Lindstrom.
Aye.
Muse.
Aye.
Turner.
Aye.
Vento.
Aye.
Wolf. Wolf. Zarin.
Zarin's an aye.
Chair Zelli.
Aye. All right, that motion carried. Thank you, all three and everybody who's engaged with the AC. And I really hope that we can invite you back, not a year from now, but something sooner as we kind of get into the year and we kind of see how things are going. So, and obviously throughout all of our committee work up ahead. So thank you, and thanks for visiting us here on the council meeting.
Mr. Chair,
think
I'm
we,
sorry, if I may, just I know the matter is closed, but I just want to say thank you to the council for the opportunity to serve the community. It has been a pleasure to serve as the co-chair of the Equity Advisory Committee, and I also really want to acknowledge all the hard work that the OEO staff, put into supporting our committee. I just, want to acknowledge that and thank them for that. So thank you all, and that will be all.
thank you, Nalima and Anita and Sarah. Really appreciate your presentation, and don't stray too far. We're going to move on to West Coistra and get an update on our procurement that we will be acting on next week, but more and as importantly, kind of our update on our status of our electric bus, both experience, but more importantly, our aspirations. So, Wes, thank you for presenting.
Thank you, Chair Zelli. And as you mentioned tonight, I want to provide a little bit of a status report on the electric bus pilot. I will review the 60-foot bus procurement that will be before the council next week, and then I will try to end with a little discussion of next steps on advancing the electric bus program. But before I get started, I just want to mention that I have with me Vince Pellegrin, Chief Operating Officer, Carrie Desmond, Principal Engineer, Brian Funk, Deputy Chief Operating Officer over bus, and Matthew Dake, Director of Bus Maintenance, and they are the experts and will be available to help answer questions about the electric bus pilot experience, and as well as the procurement and even next steps. So also, I feel it's important to begin by clarifying that the 60-foot diesel bus procurement does not represent in any way a backing away from the commitment we have to the electric bus program. With consideration to current technology, this procurement, given the route and bus type, simply does not offer a good opportunity for adding electric bus in a way that we think will be successful. I'll speak more to that later on, but do be assured that Metro Transit remains committed to electric bus, and as we believe it's the long-term future of our fleet. And this commitment, I think, is really evidenced by years of work to gather information, seek funding for, develop, and implement the current pilot, as well as our continuing efforts to fund and plan for the future. Sustainability is really the business of mass transit. We provide mobility to people who would otherwise need to rely on single occupancy vehicles, and we're so important to the sustainability plan of the region. I also need to mention that Metro Transit has a long track record of being on the leading edge of adopting sustainable technology and practices, certainly long before I became general manager. The examples include being among the first transit agencies in the U.S. to adopt hybrid buses, achieving a gold level in the 2014 APTA Sustainability Program for environmental stewardship and reductions in energy and fuel consumption, for being part of Metropolitan Council's 2018 Excel Green Energy Partnership, including the commitment from Excel to provide energy from renewable sources that are 60% renewable by 2030 and fully renewable by 2040, and then continuing to design and construct energy efficient facilities, including the new Metro Transit Police Department Police Building and the new Minneapolis Bus Garage, which includes sustainable elements such as geothermal heating and cooling systems, LED lighting, and solar arrays. So Metro Transit's current electric bus project is just another example of contributing to advancing sustainable technology. And Metro Transit is among the first transit agencies in the U.S. to adopt 60-foot battery electric buses, which is the pilot project that I want to report on tonight. I'm not seeing my slides up, and there they are. So we can move to the third slide right there. Thank you. Our staff and I have had a number of opportunities to update the Transportation Committee on the electric bus pilot, but we have not really had an opportunity to provide an update to the full council for quite some time. And as you know, the electric bus pilot potential initially included the 8 electric buses and the 6 diesel buses assigned to the C-Line ABRT. As background, in 2017, FDA awarded Metro Transit a low-no emission grant in the amount of $1.75 million to offset some of the additional costs of the C-Line and electric buses and the associated charging infrastructure. The procurement of the buses occurred late in May of 2018. New Flyer won that award with a cost of approximately $1.4 million for each electric bus and $835,000 for each diesel bus. 8 depot chargers and 2 en route chargers. I'll mention the depot chargers. I should just say garage chargers. That's more familiar, but we call them depot chargers. And 2 online chargers were both included in the procurement. The installed cost of each depot charger was $250,000, and the installed cost of each of the 2 online chargers was about $1 million. The first electric bus was delivered in February of 2019, and 4 of 8 depot chargers were delivered in April, with the others coming a few weeks later. The en route chargers were delivered later than planned, and the first was delivered on May 30th of 2019, and the second was delivered in July. And many of you here will remember that the C-Line's opening date was June 8th. So when we opened the C-Line, there was no en route chargers available, as one had not yet been delivered and the other was still under testing and the testing and the commissioning process. Without en route chargers, the range of electric buses was reduced from about 140 miles to about 90 miles. And this loss of range meant that we had to add more diesel buses to the C-Line operations to provide the service that we'd committed to. So due to the continuing problems with the chargers, we've never been able to move back to the original service plan, and have always had to have extra buses. And again, I'll talk a little bit more later about that. Next slide, please. Certainly the greatest benefit of electric bus is no tailpipe emissions, but customers also like the quiet and smooth ride. And I can say that apart from the reliability issues, the operators also enjoy driving electric bus. When both depot and en route chargers are working, we found that the electric bus range has performed as expected, somewhere around 120 to 140 plus miles, depending on the weather conditions. It's just like electric cars from the standpoint that in the winter they go less miles, in the summer they go more miles. There's kind of a sweet spot that's not too hot, not too cold, and those of you that use electric cars and vehicles understand that and experience that. And the other thing I would say is the pilot has provided a great opportunity to evaluate electric bus performance across issues such as and performance issues such as reliability, range, and cost. Next slide, please. As I review our pilot experience, I think it's important to keep in mind that this was intended as a pilot. It is the adoption of early technology, and as such, we expected to have a challenging experience. We expected to have difficulties to work through. That is almost by definition what a pilot is. And our purpose was to learn from the pilot for future applications and decision making, including making future electric bus purchasing decisions. So as I mentioned earlier, due to the unreliability of the buses and the charging infrastructure, and it became an ongoing issue throughout, we have not been able to implement the original service plan, which was based upon certain ranges for the electric bus, assuming that they would be using en route chargers. So during the first 631 days of C-Line operations, that's the number of days between the opening on June 8th and end of February of this year, the performance reflects the challenges that we have faced with the reliability of both the buses and the chargers. And I would say especially the chargers, but we've dealt with some issues and some complexities of both. Depot and en route chargers were available on the same day for only 152 of 631 days. That's kind of the reason that we have not been able to change our service plans to adopt the original plan that we had for the 6 diesel buses and 8 electric buses. On average, during that 631 days, electric bus has been available for 72% of the service days, and diesel buses have averaged 90% availability during those service days. There were 10 days when all electric buses and all 10 chargers, depot and en route chargers, were available at the same time. We're all available at the same time. But I want to emphasize that we do not need all depot chargers to work to get the 8 buses on the street, electric buses on the street. And there are times that we may get by with one en route charger, but this information still really represents the ongoing challenges and that we've had with the reliability of the technology. Next slide, please. As mentioned, the reduced reliability and range of buses necessitated an alternative service plan that required the addition of more diesel buses. I think we added 5 diesel buses to the route. We originally were going to have 6. We ended up with 11 diesel buses and 8 electric buses. Some of those added diesel buses were added as extras because of reliability issues, so that we had not all of them were in service on every day. We always have an extra board, and we had a little bit more of an extra board for this service because of some of the technology issues that we were dealing with. Anyway, it required addition of more diesel buses, and I will say that we always use electric buses when these are available. But while electric buses were originally planned for 60% of the fleet, 8 of the 14 total buses, electric buses have represented 24% of the total C-Line service miles so far. The total electric bus miles for across all buses for the C-Line has been 250,000 miles. And the diesel buses have totaled about 790,000 miles. Again, this difference is the result of a reduced reliability and range of the electric buses. And as you were previously notified through email on the day it occurred, today all depot and en route chargers are shut down, and the current plan is to replace these under current warranty. I'll mention that through this time that New Flyer has been a good partner. They've been always available to us. They've assigned a technician to be here every day. When we call, they answer, and they've been a good partner in that regard. We both have been disappointed with the struggles that have occurred in the performance of the electric buses and the chargers, and we continue to work in partnership together. They've extended our warranties for buses and the warranties for the depot chargers, and again, they've been there when we've called, and they've been there whenever they've been needed. And so I want to make sure that people know that. Next slide, please. This is a slide about electric bus costs, and we all know that the upfront cost of 60-foot electric buses is significantly greater than for diesel buses. The table shows the estimated upfront incremental cost increase for 60-foot electric buses. So these are incremental cost increases, and that includes the cost of the bus itself at about $570,000 more than a diesel bus. And then also the costs of additional buses of about $200,000 per bus, per electric bus, for additional buses that are required because of the range limitations of electric bus, and then the cost of charging infrastructure. This slide also on the bottom lists what should be reasonably considered when calculating electric bus operations and life cycle maintenance costs. Up to now, fuel costs have been more than double for electric bus when compared to diesel bus, but diesel fuel has been unusually cheap during the pilot period, remarkably cheap. So this increased cost has lessened recently as diesel costs have gone up, and that cost differential would really fluctuate as the price of electricity changes or the price of diesel fuel changes. Other cost considerations on life cycle include potential midlife battery replacement estimated at about $300,000, and both bus and charger maintenance. But having operated electric buses for only 21 months, since June 8th, 2019, we don't really have enough information to predict life cycle operating and maintenance costs. All the work that we've done so far has been under warranty. And as I mentioned, the warranties have been extended for both the bus and the depot chargers or the garage chargers. None of the cost information either is to suggest the electric bus is not worth the additional cost. With a reliable electric bus fleet, the environmental benefits will be significant. But electric bus does require additional upfront investment, and this calls out the importance of finding the greatest value for the limited money that is available for electric bus technology. So the question really kind of becomes, how do we take what we have learned and use our limited resources to achieve the best outcome for transit and for the environment? How do we take a look at the big picture in this regard? Next slide, please. This slide was part of a December 2018 bus fleet strategy presentation. This was just a couple months before I became general manager at Metro Transit, and the slide recognizes the C-Line electric bus pilot and lays out a vision for purchasing electric buses going forward. But it also acknowledges that we need to take what we learn in the C-Line pilot experience to make informed decisions about future procurements. As it suggests above the bars, once we receive the new technology, it's important that we take the appropriate approach at testing, evaluating it, and making final decisions about future investments. Next slide, please. So the 60-foot bus procurement that will be before you as a business item next week authorizes a base order of 143 60-foot buses and an option for 29 additional buses. You see that at a cost not to exceed 121 million or almost 122 million, as is shown on the slide. The base buses will be assigned to Orange Line, D Line, Arterial Bus Rapid Transit, B Line, ABRT, and commuter express routes. Next slide, please. So when considering applying the experience we've had on this 60-foot bus procurement, the recommendation to purchase only 60-foot buses is really based on what we've learned and what we know today. What we know today is from what we've experienced from our pilot and from the experience that we've observed in other transit agencies and their electric bus demonstrations and pilots. Our conclusions are that the 60-foot electric bus technology that is available today is not ready to support 60-foot buses on the routes that are targeted by this procurement. Today, our 60-foot bus technology is not working. It's simply not ready. And the BRT routes that we're assigning to the buses in this procurement are longer than the C-Line, and we would require significantly greater range and reliability. And that would require more buses and operators to make up for the range and reliability limits like we're doing today on the C-Line pilot. But this would even create more buses in that regard and more operators in that regard because these lines are longer. We do believe that the 60-foot bus technology will progress, and we believe that our pilot and our partnership with New Flyer is contributing to that progression. This procurement really the procurement is really a point-in-time decision about how best to spend our limited resources based on the technology that is available at the time of entering into a contract. In other words, the procurement that will be in front of you next week is not for a 60-foot bus pilot, electric bus pilot like we did for the C-Line. We've done that, and that's what we're still learning from. And again, it's important that we make the best investment possible in advancing electric buses. And this procurement really does not represent that best investment and that best chance of success. And we need to have a success. And we think there's other places to do that. The 60-foot bus technology is still immature. 60-foot electric buses do not have the range and reliability to support our next ABRT routes and would necessitate the addition of more buses, as I mentioned, and operators to accommodate the range, and there are just better options, we think, to expand our electric bus program. Next slide, please. So I'm going to emphasize again that we're committed to advancing the electric bus program with investments that bring the greatest potential for success. We've designed the new Minneapolis bus garage that is being built right now to accommodate future electric buses and have laid the groundwork for expansion of the electric fleet. We've also received a federal low-no emissions grant in 2019, like the one we received in 2017, to construct solar and battery storage at this facility that will support bus electrification. We have formed a partnership with Xcel Energy, as you are all aware, in the electric vehicle program application to PUC, and if that is approved by the PUC, this will provide Metro Transit with $65 million in capital to bridge the electric bus funding gap. We're also applying for another FDA low-no emissions grant. And together, it is really critical for us to find and pursue these additional funds to expand the electric bus program as transit faces significant structural operating deficits, as we've talked about many times, as well as an unfunded long-term capital maintenance pressures that are due to the transitway expansion across the region. And you've experienced that recently when you approved the $95 million into the capital program to fund deferred maintenance. So it's important that we find funding streams to cover the costs of the additional costs of electric bus. We're also, I'll mention, evaluating proposals for master contracts for fleet electrification services. The first contract is for program management services to assist the Metro Transit staff in developing and refining our fleet electrification strategy and plan and pursuing funding to advance the electrification program. So we're looking for outside help to do that. And the remaining three are focused on engineering services to implement charging infrastructure projects. There's a contract each for engineering design services, construction support services, and testing and commissioning services. And we hope to get this in front of you in the next, I believe, next couple of months. So given what we learned and observed, we do think our next best step is to focus on 40-foot electric buses, again, dependent on having the funding available to do that. The 40-foot buses represent more than 2/3 of our current fleet. These buses provide many more route options, serving densely populated areas, and it really provides a much greater opportunity to expand the program than does the 60-foot buses, which really represent less than 1/3 of our total buses and are often on routes like commuter express routes that don't really bring the greatest benefit to densely populated areas as would the local routes. And 40-foot buses would have a greater range and should require less upfront capital investment. The need for extra, and as such, the need for extra buses would be reduced, as would the need in some cases for online chargers. We just had actually electric bus, Proterra bring an electric bus for viewing here last week, and it was a 40-foot bus that they claimed had a range of between 200 and 300 miles, and actually had the battery lining the roof and lining the floor throughout. And with a 200 to 300 mile range, that on local routes, that can be a game changer if it works. And so we're really excited about technology. I think my impression is, I'm not going to state this for a fact, I haven't researched it well enough, but my impression is that there are certainly more vendors in the 40-foot bus, electric bus market. And I think there's been more work done in the 40-foot bus market. 60-foot buses are the heaviest buses. They tend to be on the longest routes and all the things that we've talked about before. Next slide, please. So looking ahead, as I mentioned, we're going to be bringing the master contracts that will include contracts for planning, for developing a plan for the electrification of our fleet and looking at it from the big picture, but also looking at it from the finer technology issues that we have to resolve as well in the other three contracts. So that'll be a future business item. And then we're going to plan for regular updates, to provide regular updates to the Metropolitan Council And I think this evening we're going to actually launch the new webpage to consolidate information and provide regular updates, because if one thing we've learned from this experience, we know people are really interested. And I think we're going to try to make an attempt to get more information out and have more information available, and to provide regular updates that are available to the public through our webpage. So I kind of went quickly through that. Chair Zelli, I appreciate the time, and I'm available, and as are my staff, for questions.
All right, let's open up to questions. Councilmember Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I understand that the current procurement issue before us, we kind of can't do much because the issue of the diesel fuel source is built into the contract. So my question is that something we can change or not? Is it a federal thing, or and if we have these kinds of clauses in our contracts, I think in the future we have to do the internal homework about not setting ourselves up to fail, because when the community hears that we have a benchmark that we want to say we will get, clean energy by XYZ amount of years, but then we don't. And then now, like in our positions, I've gotten angry legislators calling me and constituents thinking that we either are dragging our feet or are sending mixed signals. And so, as a council member, I don't mind taking a tongue lashing from, I think that's from the public, that's part of our job. But I think we have to be more thoughtful about how we don't set ourselves up for failure the next time. And so, so it's both a statement and a question about that kind of language in our procurement contracts going forward.
Chair Zelli, council member, first of all, I don't want council members to have a tongue lashing over our business either, certainly. I don't want one myself. But I want to say that the Orange Line commitment is part of a federal grant that we received, the Small Starts grant, and it would be my understanding is that we can't get out of that, and Orange Line is going to be starting at the end of this year, and the timing is tied to that. But I also want to say again that even with more time and even with disaggregation of the procurement, the information we have today does not point to a really good opportunity for success in 60-foot buses for these routes. These routes are longer. It's been really a hard thing to explain, but these routes are longer. They would require us to purchase many more buses. For example, for the same route, because of the range limitations. And really, what I really think is important and that I want to convey is that we have limited dollars. We know that, and it's really important that we apply those limited dollars, if we're going to invest in electric bus, to the best chance of success and to the greatest benefit of the most people. And that's not what is offered, we believe, in these procurements. Certainly, that's not true for commuter express routes, and just the makeup of the routes does not conform to the current technology of the electric bus. So I apologize for the calls you've been receiving, and there's certainly we can do a better job of communicating these issues sooner to people, and we will. But I think regardless of time, or regardless of the Orange Line tie, the other routes would not be good choices for 60-foot electric bus. And 60-foot electric bus is the hardest technology, frankly, by virtue of its size.
All right, let's get some more questions. Peter Lindstrom.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. What's being proposed to us is a choice between electric buses and diesel buses. And I'm curious, Wes, you mentioned how innovative we were back around 2002, 2003, when we were one of the first to move forward with hybrid buses. And I know that New Flyer makes a 60-foot hybrid bus combining diesel and electric. And I'm wondering if that was considered for this upcoming purchase. Why or why not?
Sure. Chair Zelli, council member. The first of all, the cost of hybrid buses, I think the last estimate I've heard are about $1 million. So they're still run about $200,000 or $300,000 more than diesel buses, and they offer about I'm basing on the last data I saw, about 1.3 miles per gallon improvement. They're costly in maintenance because now you're maintaining both a diesel engine and electric components, and the controls are really complicated. And our experience with them is that they've been the least reliable bus in our fleet. But there was a decision made when we went to the C-Line pilot to move away from hybrid buses, and if we have money to invest in electrification of the system, it would be best used and set aside to invest in electric buses. It would be a better investment, we felt, on the long term in considering the future of the fleet. So those are the reasons we have. I'm not saying that that'll satisfy everybody's concerns about that, but those were the reasons.
I'm going to jump in as a kind of a wonky bus guy, but the express nature of these runs, where you get much better fuel economy because it's not a start and stop kind of operation. Those start and stop, which is more of a local 40 bus, which is where you get the advantage of both hybrid and especially electric buses, which I think we have great opportunity going forward. And the other thing to keep in mind is that the greatest impact on the climate impact for our system is to have a higher density of passengers on a bus, like a 60-foot bus, which is replacing people from cars. So, the carbon on a per passenger mile basis is so much lower that when you add the propulsion system, that's an additional advantage, but we have to kind of keep our eye on the benefits we're having with these higher density express buses. They're kind of a different kind of mode, but anyway, I'm going to go down my little rabbit hole of bus worlds. Let's see, I know, Linnea, did you have a question?
Thank you, Chair. I have 3 questions. And I think one of the pieces that I'd like to know about, a number of folks who reached out to me mentioned about the ability of doing public comment. And we have gone to a practice where people are emailing public comment or being told how they can email public comment. But I do think that as this time goes on, we should think about how we make sure we're being accessible in the way that our constituents expect us to be. And one of the things that was pointed out multiple times was that other agencies are allowing for public comment. And so I just want to know if, that was one of the things, and it wasn't just with this issue. I also had something come up with the MPOSC, where people were questioning our practice around that. Part of this is to what Wes shared about how we're communicating with the public in the timeliness in a way that they feel confident in the response and the information that they're getting. Part of what I heard really clearly in the emails and phone calls that I received was around the public comment nature of it. My other question is, do we have a plan for how we're going to get either this technology to work or to shift to another technology? It's clear our public's really invested in this and are willing. So I'm just curious if we have a plan for that. And then my last question is, can we develop a way of creating better understanding with our public around the cost and the technology needs to accomplish what the public really is desiring, which is getting as close as possible to zero emissions, right? Everything causes emissions, so I want to acknowledge that we can't get to zero. But, our times are changing and people are thinking a lot more about what they're willing to give up and what needs to happen. I know a number of the constituents that have reached out to me would be deeply willing to hear, here's the cost, here's what's needed. Here's what we need from the state. If you want to see this happen, I don't think it's all on us to solve all the issues, but we have to invite the public and our other institutional partners into the solution. So those are my 3 questions.
Thanks, Councilmember. And the public nature of comments is something that we should be more transparent and understand when and how we can provide that. And we'll take that under consideration. I think, Wes, maybe you can comment on our planning. I think you touched on increased costs, but I think there is always a desire for as much transparency as possible as we look at how we deploy what available capital dollars we have. But
yeah, great. Thank you, Chair Zilli and Councilmember Alice-Engelbretson. Appreciate the questions. I'll mention on the public comment, and I'm going to give you a bureaucrat warning here before I do mention it. So I understand the limitations of that. This was an issue, and this is not saying that people should pick it up. That's why I'm giving you the bureaucrat warning here. But this is an issue that was addressed in the CIP. It was talked about openly that we did not have money for electric bus in the CIP, both at the Transportation Committee and at the Council committee. And then we also included that issue as a statement in our letter to the Public Utilities Commission on the support for Excel. So it's been out there, but I know people aren't watching all those things, and I get that, and that's why I gave you the bureaucratic warning on it. On the terms of the plan,
If I could, before we move on to the next thing, Chair, I think there's a misunderstanding of my question. My question is about how do we get back to a place where the public have an opportunity to have an oral exchange with us around public comment?
yeah, we heard your question, and I think Wes was answering a separate question specifically about this issue, but I take your comment for what it was, which is how can we work these meetings in the appropriate times to allow comment. Got that. But anyway, keep going, Wes.
yes, okay. Never start out an answer with bureaucratic warning. Oh, that's I guess.
Yeah, note to self. Okay.
With respect to the plan, I think that's what we're trying to get to with the master contracts and that I mentioned before, that we'll be looking at how we structure electric fleet strategy and how we find and how we can access more money. And then there's those specific issues that are there. But as you said, Council Member, these are all partnerships. And part of the issue we're struggling with is the technology, where the technology is today and in the point of time where we're doing this. And sometimes I think, and this is just a thought, that maybe there needs to be more funding in the development of the technology, because maybe that's where more can be, more value can be made in an investment, because that's what we're struggling with right now. And but to that point, that's what we hope to come up with. I think it's also an opportunity for me to say that when we look at our fleet plan and the electrification of our fleet plan, we're in a really odd place right now. We're in the middle of a pandemic where we've lost, I don't know, right now we're down about 60% in ridership. And we of course are hoping to recover from that, but it changes how we're using our fleet. I think today we're using about 600 buses, and in the past we've used 800 buses, and that changes the timing of when we purchase buses and all sorts of things. So we have to bring that into the mix. It's really the right time to be rethinking all this, and for many, many reasons, some of which are not directly related to electric bus procurements. And then I'm trying to remember the last question.
Chair, can I help?
Sure. Yeah, no, I'm looking at you. Yes, go ahead.
So how can we help develop an understanding for the public of what the real cost is? And maybe this is a little bit of your last response, both in the context of technology and in the context of cost. So I just think, you know, the spirit of this is that we have people who are interested. Let's help them understand what our barriers are to accomplishing what we all want to have, which is a less impactful mass transit system on our environment. So if we can help people better understand what all those barriers are, it's structural deficit, it's lack of technology. So I love that point of more money is needed to develop the technology. If it's partnerships or other things, is there a way that we can help our public and ourselves, as far as council members, have a better understanding and be able to communicate more transparently what is exactly needed to get to that goal that I think we all really want to have?
Chair Zelling and council member. I think, you know, that's one of the, I think, you know, communication is really a big part of it. I need to say on the side though, that we're still learning about the costs and so forth. As I said, you know, people talk about life cycle costs and it should be cheaper, but it's not like owning an electric car. It's a little more than that. And we're learning about that. And we're really in a place now where we don't know what the life cycle costs are going to be. It's hard to predict gas prices, but that putting the pricing of fuel aside, even the maintenance requirements, while we don't have to replace near as many parts, there's the maintenance, the preventative maintenance requirements may not come in parts, but it comes in inspection and other things that we don't have to have. In fact, the book of preventative maintenance, I'm told, is thicker than the book of preventative maintenance on diesel engines. That doesn't mean it's more costly. We're kind of discovering that. But I think, you know, part of what we're trying to do with introducing the website and the blog is to create more communication with the public and more dialogue with the public. And I'll just say here, we're always, you know, I would much rather have people who are interested in this subject know more about it than less about it, and I want to learn from them as well. And you know, I think these exchanges are great, and I enjoy them. I don't like the exchanges after the fact when people felt like they didn't hear in time. That's no fun for anybody. No one learns from that. You just get into a posturing mode. And I think we can do a better job of that. And I think we're going to try to with the web page. And I think there's other ways of doing it in a more direct way. Maybe not more direct, and maybe more virtual direct way. So I think your point is well taken in your question.
Okay, thank you. More questions. Councilmember Vento.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm really struggling with this. I too have gotten more calls on this than I can count, more emails than I can count, more contacts than on any issue thus far in the 2 years that I've been on the council. And for me, communication doesn't work one way. I think it is critically important that we engage with folks, whether they represent the environmental community, the labor community, public policymakers at all levels, taxpayers, citizens, people who are committed to a cleaner environment. And I'm struggling with how we can move forward on this, having not engaged in that kind of a conversation. I feel like we're taking the taxpayers, the legislators, and people who care about this issue by surprise without giving them a chance to be heard and to share with us what they know. If we've learned anything in the last year, we've learned that Tim Walz and his administration are damn good communicators. And on their daily calls or press briefings, they acknowledge what they don't know. They acknowledge what they need to learn. They acknowledge when they make mistakes. And I think someday when the story is told about the pandemic, Tim Walz and Jan Malcolm and all of that team will be a big part of the list of heroes that really did things carefully and with the public interest. And I think we can learn something from them by acknowledging what we don't know and taking time to hear and to really listen deeply to the other voices that are very concerned about this. The last thing I want to say is that, yes, this is a money issue, but it's also a health issue. It's the health of our riders, it's the health of our employees, and it's the health of our earth. And I think we've got to keep that in focus. The price tag on that, you just can't account for. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Vento. Peter Lindstrom.
Just thank you, Mr. Chair. Building off of that last comment, one of the things that I've been thinking about in these last few days, and this topic has really helped it bubble up to the surface, is having the council consider the social cost of carbon when we make our procurement decisions. To the exact point that Councilmember Vento just made, that there are indirect costs to our purchases. And several other cities or regional governments have already incorporated this idea of a social cost to carbon. And in fact, I mentioned this idea to at least to one of the groups that had contacted me on this issue, and they said, yeah, they have expertise on this concept and are willing to work with us. So whether it's that idea or another idea, as we're formulating our plan on EV procurement, let's bring these folks to the table and have a website that's fantastic, but engage in more of a concrete dialogue.
Thank you. Judy Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Boy, I'm going to really go out on a limb here. I got one email on this. That was it. Now, trust me, I know it's important. I've been around long enough to know that this is a big deal. So I get what you're all going through because I've been there just differently in my former life. And I'm not, please don't email me. I hear you. If you want to email me, great, but no need to send 10,000 emails to me because I get it. So, you know, I want to say this. Was our PR team, Terry, do they get engaged? Because, you know, you could go on NPR, you could pitch some of these things. These are kind of timely topics so that we can talk about what our goals are, whether it's this topic or others. I mean, how do we approach that kind of outreach rather than expecting, and it's true, we have to have a robust website. Wes, I really appreciate that. I know we have tons of great information on the Met Council's website, but if you're just an average person trying to get through your day, especially during a pandemic and all the challenges at hand, it's not like people are just, you know, hanging out on the Met Council's website. So, you know, the media is always writing stories about us. I know that there were stories about this, but do we have those times where we can work with our communications PR arm and internally and, you know, talk about, well, hey, you know, there's an immediate issue, you know, in the first quarter, we've got these things that we'd like to be more proactive on. Is that a strategy that we use at all? I mean, I know the governor does. And he, to Councilmember Vento's point, I mean, I think he's pretty astute at, but, you know, we don't hold daily press conferences either with, you know, the media surrounding us. So how do we take advantage of those opportunities to get out there and explain what's going on? And then the only other comment I have is this is a tough situation because, you know, New Flyer is in partnership with us. From what Wes says, they're trying to do everything they can. I know since I've been watching this issue, it's just been fits and starts. I don't know, and maybe Wes, you can answer, maybe Deb can answer if she, but like, I don't know if our not opt-outs, we don't use that word,
Sure.
other suburban transit providers, if they are using electric and if they have any experience from this. I don't believe so. But anyway, I just want to say, Wes, I get it. I can support this. If, you know, more public input would be great, but, you know, we're just at a situation where it's between a rock and a hard place, and these are tax dollars. And right now, if the technology isn't there, our will is there, but you got to go when you can go, right? So it's just a rough spot to be, but it's two problems. It's the public perception and public communications problem or opportunity. And then it's just trying to get in the right situation where the technology will work and those investments will pay off. trust me, there have been governments too that have invested in things like, you know, standalone Wi-Fi. We're going to go make that a utility or whatever it might be that communities have tried, privatizing this or that. And the technology changes. Oh, sorry, it's thundering here in Plymouth. The technology changes catch you, and you find out, you know, you've kind of gone down a rabbit hole. So we have to be smart about our investments. So those are my comments, and hoping we can take advantage of the media that are always checking in with us, but how do we kind of turn that around and get into some of the more programming pieces where we can take a longer time with a lot of good listenership to tell our story.
Thank you, Councilmember. And, you know, just to acknowledge Councilmember Vento and those comments, this is a communications challenge, and yet maybe it's an opportunity to embrace the interest to kind of co-create the future in our interest and in our future investment in a low to no carbon system. But it is one where you know, we're more reacting as opposed to talking it clearly. I have to say, some of the conversations I've had when you get deeper into it, just even today, and that's why I think it's good to take a week to kind of get into the larger context, has been helpful, and we need to be having more of those kind of engaged conversations. Deb, did you have a comment? Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to respond to the question about the suburban transit providers, they don't have any electric buses. To Councilmember Atlas Ingebrigtsen's point of needing to know the whole cost, one big part of the cost is the infrastructure that goes with it, not just the buses. And so, you know, that comes with a pretty hefty price tag and takes a lot of work to get that part set up. So they haven't taken that route yet. We do know that Southwest Transit did get a grant for, so they have their Southwest Prime service, which are small vehicles, more like vans type setups. And they did, with that grant, I know they're purchasing some electric vehicles for that. So different kind of vehicle, but they are trying to do some of that as well and build that into their service.
Great, thank you. Let's see, Riva, is that your hand up?
Yeah, I think there might be some hands on the screen as well. So I don't know.
Oh, I'm
if I'm
sorry.
jumping
Yeah.
ahead of other people.
Well, you know what? You're right. I know that Councilmember Sterner, you've had your hand up longer. So let's go to you, Phil, first.
Thank you very much. And I'm checking off a few other questions here, so I have less on it. But maybe if I could just have some. So like an environment committee, one of the best places that we go for pollution is they call point source. And so I know in the past we've looked at it might have been the chargers like we're replacing it. So are we getting down to where like Siemens, the charging company, isn't ready for prime time and we're blaming all the buses? Or do we know exactly what it is? It's a training? Is it new flyer doesn't have the right connection? I mean, I guess that's the first thing I'm trying to say, because these issues will come up whether we go with a 40-foot bus or a 60-foot bus if we don't have this figured out. So I'm wondering if you could, let me know more of that. Where exactly is the problem?
Chair Zelli and Councilmember Sterner, I think the issues that we've been having have been with both. We've had both bus battery issues, and we've had some. We had primarily charger issues, and the chargers are provided to New Flyer through Siemens as a subcontractor. But I want to go back to what I said in my presentation, that this is new technology, and we go in it together as a partnership, and you hope for the best, and you make that commitment as a pilot. By definition, a pilot is saying, I don't know what we're getting into exactly, but it's important enough for us to find out more about this technology. So I think, I'm hesitant to blame anybody for anything. That's the easy part. I think the hard part is working through it, and we're still trying to work through it. The thought that right now is they're going to replace all our chargers under warranty. I think that's the best place to go with that. Hopefully we'll get the new models. We'll be getting the newer models. And I know we will in doing that. And the problem has been with the technology, and I'm not trying to suggest that the people aren't responsible for it, but we're in a research and development phase. Frankly, that became apparent from the very beginning.
Okay.
Councilmember Fredson. Oh, sorry, Phil.
I just
Did you have a
just
follow-up?
had one more. Yeah. So then sorry, I said I don't. I guess I don't count. I just have a couple more with it, but I'm kind of looking at like when we're going down the path of like new buses, diesel. That's a 14-year commitment. So I'm kind of like looking at, since we've been using 600 rather than 800 buses, can we look at delaying the delivery of buses for a couple of years? Could we extend our, by extending our diesel buses? Could we look at a short-term lease of a couple-year leases? Or how about hydrogen fuel cell as that technology that lowers our carbon footprint? But I was kind of looking at those kind of things because right now it just seems like it's either diesel or it's electric, and I'm just wondering about these other possibilities until the technology catches up.
Chair Zelli and Councilmember Sterner, this is really a kind of an opportunity for me to say that the diesel buses, the 60-foot buses that we're replacing, some of them are already 17 years old because we've been delaying the replacement of them. We've already been robbing one side to pay for the other side in this process. We've extended the life of our buses. It used to be 12 years, and we went to 14 years. And then some of these have gone to 17 years, and we've used that to pay for the parts of the new Minneapolis garage and parts of the police department. And probably some of that money went into the C-Line electric bus program, because as we're all become acutely aware of, we don't have a lot of money for our capital improvement program. We have a lot of pressure in our capital improvement program, and we have to take from somewhere to give to another, and we've already taken from bus life to give to others, and that's why we have so many of the buses, the 91 buses going towards the community express routes, is because we've been putting off the replacement of those buses already too long. And that's not good for frankly, that's not good for the environment either, because they tend to be dirtier buses.
Thank you very much. I'm complete.
Councilmember Fredson, you've been very patient.
Thank you, Chair, and Wes, for your presentation, and to Brian Funk for his presentation to the Transportation Committee. And I have also been on the receiving end of a lot of phone calls and emails on this, and I think that's a good thing. And I want to thank all of the folks who live in District 14 who've reached out to express concerns about this. And I think it just shows that they share our values and commitment to electrifying our fleet. One of the things I did was just, cut and paste a link to the Transportation Committee presentation and put the time markers in there so folks could hear the reasons themselves. And I think generally the response from folks who have contacted me have been understanding. And so I appreciate that we created this website, and I would just ask if we could put a link to this presentation and discussion, so we could point folks to the presentation discussion. I think that would be really helpful.
Good idea, thank you. And now, Councilmember Chambliss.
Thank you. Well, one of the things that I want to say is it's really important to have this type of dialogue, because we're learning more than what we've been getting. I know we've been getting updates all along on the challenges of the chargers and getting updates on the electric buses, so that's not a surprise to us. What is a surprise is the response. All the calls, the emails is an indication that people really care about our environment. And we are at the forefront of this new technology and experiencing the difficulties with it as well. The more information we can provide, that will help people to understand, and it will help people to know the value of us being able to overcome these challenges and be aspirational to being able to use, and also being influential in the ability to be able to successfully use electric buses into the future. So the comments about having further dialogue, the website, all of this, I like to look at what is the positive in this. The positive is we've got a lot of people that are very concerned about our environment, and they're looking to the Metropolitan Council to help us take an opportunity to do that. So let's take this as an opportunity to have some more dialogue and be the leaders in the use of this new technology and explaining what some of the challenges and what some of the possibilities are for the future.
And that we have a plan going forward. Thank you. That's a great comment, Councilwoman Chambliss. I'm sorry, Councilmember Atlas Ingebrigtsen, you had another thought.
Yeah, I just want to, I think Reva's comments, Councilmember Chambliss's comments, Chair and Wes were really on point. I think we need to really lean into a couple of things. People are changed. Our behavior, things that in 2008, working on trying to increase non-motorized transportation and reducing car trips for the environment, with the city of Minneapolis and all the surrounding communities, things we dreamed about happening have happened due to the pandemic. People are seeing firsthand significant improvements in air quality, water quality. They're also really, frankly, getting a deep understanding of how fragile life is. And see this as an opportunity for what it is. We should seize that and see ourselves as partners with those who are contacting us and being concerned about this. The reality is the wake-up call for many is we cannot continue on the road we were on just a year ago. Though it is different. The world is different, people are different, and they want to see us seize the moment, seize the day. And a big part of that is changing how we invite them into the problem. We don't have to be the solvers of all things. I love, Wes, what you said about not being interested in placing blame. Geez knows there's tons of blame everywhere. We can all get blamed all the time. But when we want to create change and create a solution, we have to invite people into the problem and invite solutions to come from everywhere. So with whatever we do with the website, I hope it's an invitation. It's an invitation for people to bring us solutions. Think about some of those things in the last 10 years where we've open sourced an issue and an amazing solution has come about as a result of inviting people into the problem. But the other part of that is the two-way street of engagement that Councilmember Vento and Councilmember Chambliss, really talked about. So I just want to encourage us to take advantage of what this really not great last year in the context of the public pandemic and the impact on this institution, the significant change we've been forced into, to lean into it and say, what can we do to innovate and be creative coming out of it, and look at this situation with what we have to gain, not just what we have to lose, or trying to get back to normal, which is just not going to be possible. We are a different people as a result of what's happened.
Thank you, and that is very inspiring, and I love the word invitation. And one thing I've heard too, when you think about this past year, is it brought the future that was always there, but it brought it right up to our face, and I think that is an opportunity. I know it's 6:01, so we are going to hear from Jim Alexander and the Southwest Light Rail update next week. But stay tuned on that. We will have actual business item vote next week as well. Maybe not as much time for discussion, but certainly there'll be conversations even in the next 7 days. And with that, is there any other report that anybody would like to share? And Mary, you're out there. Oh, I'm sorry. Sue, go ahead.
Mr. Chair, if I might, is there a way for folks to post comments that we can all share, we can all see with regard to this issue, so that prior to Wednesday, we've been able to at least read the input, if not hear it? I'd appreciate that.
Sure, somebody smarter than me can figure that out. Mary, you're pretty smart. Michelle said she will be working with something, maybe a Teams comment place. Judy?
Mr. Chair, thank you. And I know it's probably not apples to apples, but when as a council member, things that would come into the public record would be included in our packets so that we'd have the front end, which was the business item. But if I didn't get all the emails, I could read the comments from others. So that's very laborious, but anything that came into my inbox that was just to me, I would forward to staff so that it could be for sure part of the public record. Anything that came into everybody, staff was copied on and I knew it was part of the public record. But I would say that, you know, I represented the city at large, but I also represented a ward during my time served. And it was always very interesting for me that I would hear from my Ward 1 constituents, but when I would read the packet as I was preparing for my meeting, I could read comments that might not have come into me from other parts of the city. And so in this case, I don't have some of the intel and public input that you've all gotten because you know, I got one email. And so I understand the breadth and scope of the issue. And I know Wes has been keeping us abreast of the challenges with the technology and New Flyer, but yeah, anything that could help enrich for the rest of us who might not be getting the dozens of emails or voicemails, that would be helpful. And I'm not trying to overburden already a very burdened staff, but that's how we used to do it. And I always found that, you know, it would help my decision making be much more rich, I guess.
We'll work on that in the next few days. When Mary nods in affirmative, I take that as a yes. Okay. Mary.
So yes, Mr. Chair, you can take that as an affirmative. We will get those comments into the packet for when we bring that business item before you. I just have one quick update and absolutely good news. So the governor this week opened up vaccinations for public transit workers. And so that's very, very exciting news for us. And so we are making plans to conduct some on-site vaccinations at 2 sites, one on the east side and one on the west side. We've contracted with a vaccinator to do our vaccinations. We're also encouraging employees to connect with the state systems, the vaccine connector, if they are eligible under 1A, because they're 65 or older or have other conditions. We want them to take advantage of that as well. They should get the first shot that's available to them. But we are expecting that we will have vaccines available to us within the next couple weeks. And so we will be working really hard to get our public transit workers all vaccinated.
Lovely. Great news. Anne, do you have anything you'd like to report?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No report.
All right. Well, another great and rich conversation. Sue, you get the last word.
I don't want the last word. I want you to have it, Mr.
No, you got it.
I just want to do a pitch for the state locator. I know 3 people who signed up today. They already have appointments and will have their vaccines by the end of the week. So that state locator system is primo, fabulous, the best.
Excellent. Well, everybody, stay safe, watch your emails, get a vaccination, and stay out of the rain. And enjoy your evening. We will see you very soon. Thanks, everybody. This meeting's adjourned.